Hey there, Mama, and welcome back to the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast, episode number 238. I'm Emily McDermott, and I am here beside you on this journey as we work together to declutter your home, head, and heart. I have been on this minimalist journey for over a decade now, and in that time, I have learned a thing or two about the common roadblocks that prevent people from successfully decluttering. So today we are going to dive into these 3 roadblocks, and also I'm going to give you some guidance on how to overcome them. So what do you say? Grab the notebook and pen and let's dive into today's episode. Hey Mama, are you tired of your cluttered home and mile-long to-do lists but are too overwhelmed to know where to start? Do you lack the time and motivation and don't think you'll ever conquer the clutter? You're in the right place. I'm Emily, wife, boy mom, and declutter coach who has overcome the overwhelm in my own life through decluttering and simplifying. I believe every mom deserves the peace that comes from a clutter-free home. Ready to get your life back? Let's declutter your home, head, and heart together. So I'm in an interesting stage of life because we are planning a move. We are going to be moving in June, starting to get everything ready. And perhaps it's that, or just perhaps it's this end of school year energy. But I am really thinking a lot about, okay, do I want this? Do I want to move this? Like, if I'm wanting to hold on to something, why am I holding on to it? And it got me thinking about the common decluttering roadblocks that I see all the time with the clients that I work with. So we're going to dive into these 3 roadblocks, and also I'm going to give you some guidance on some mindset shifts that we can use that can help us overcome these roadblocks or limiting beliefs. So let's dive right in. Number 1 is something I know very well, which is perfectionism. Now, I've spoken before on the podcast about how I am definitely a recovering perfectionist. So what does this mean when it comes to decluttering? Well, if you've ever said to yourself, I would totally declutter if I had an entire weekend to do it, or, oh, if only my husband would take the kids out for, to the park on Saturday, then I could finally focus and get this done. Well, let's be honest. If you had an entire weekend to yourself, imagine. Would you actually want to declutter? No, probably not. You would probably want to take a nap or maybe catch up on your favorite show, because decluttering is decision making, and decision making takes a lot of time and energy. So unfortunately, though, we have this all or nothing mentality. Like, if I can't go around with my trash bag and obliterate everything for a weekend, then I'm not even going to get started. Or perhaps we have this perfectionistic view of what we want our homes to look like. I don't like to throw shows like Home Edit under the bus, but honestly, it kind of gives us this perfectionistic view of like what a quote unquote decluttered, organized home looks like. And I think it's really giving us unrealistic expectations as to what that might be. So if you find yourself not even starting because you're like, oh, well, it's not going to look like that, why should I even try? That is definitely perfectionism. And pretty much everyone that I have met, including the people that join my Facebook group over at tinyurl.com/moms overcoming overwhelm, one of the number one things I hear is, I don't know where to start. Normally that's because we're paralyzed because there's so much mess everywhere and we don't know what to do. And we figure, oh, well, if I don't start it at all, I'm not going to mess it up. I'm not going to do it wrong. That's perfectionism. Well, how do we combat this? Remember that everything counts. Yes, everything. So the moldy leftovers in your fridge, the gum wrappers in your car, every little thing that you are able to declutter, no matter how small it seems, it all counts. And when you start looking at these places where you can have easy wins, that's why for my transform method, we start with the letter T, which is trash, because we want to start with that low hanging fruit of the things that are easy to get rid of, where we don't have this agonizing emotional decision. And that counts towards a clutter-free home. So if we can adopt more of that mentality rather than, oh, well, unless I have a whole weekend to start, I won't do anything. It's kind of like with exercise. exercise, like we're not going to go out and run a marathon, but maybe we can take a walk around the block, and that still has benefits for us. And besides having those easy kind of low-hanging fruit decisions and doing that first, we also want to focus on those 3 F's that I've spoken about before. Anytime we go into a space, we say, how do I want this space to feel? How do I want it to function? How do I want it to flow? And why that's important is that we're not going to have this perfectionistic idea of like what our home should, quote unquote, look like based upon, Marie Kondo or the Home Edit or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. It's going to be based upon our values and what is important to us, which makes it a lot more realistic rather than perfectionistic. And finally, finding a buddy to help you. So perhaps you want to join the Facebook group and find someone that wants to declutter their home at the same time you are, do maybe some body doubling. Anything like that can really help you to take that first step rather than being afraid to start. So that is the first roadblock that I see constantly, which is perfectionism. Okay. Moving on to number 2. Ow, I get so excited. I just bounce around here. Number 2 is aspiration. Now, we've spoken about this several times on the podcast before because it is such an issue, especially for women and moms. And aspirational clutter is keeping things from a previous season of life, or perhaps things that you would like to do in the future if only you had unlimited time, energy, resources, etc. So it's things that are kind of mocking you, making you feel bad about yourself. And really the most common categories are clothing that used to fit you, or perhaps you bought and it's really never fit you, but the tags are still on it, or shoes that are uncomfortable, but you paid a lot of money for, books that you never get around to reading, any sort of craft or hobby supplies that perhaps you used to do previously and you just never seem to find the time to do. And then also sometimes this is kitchen stuff. It could be kitchen gadgets, it could be appliances, it could be like bakeware, like the bundt pan that I never use, I always talk about, cookbooks, servingware. It's like you have this aspiration of, oh, I am going to be the person that makes this 5-course dinner for my family and friends, but it never happens. And in the meantime, your stuff is mocking you and making you feel really bad about where you are now. So what do we do about that? The mindset shift is that we are going to challenge our assumptions and the stories that we are telling ourselves. Okay, so if you've ever said, I will use this someday, I'll use this cookbook someday, I will use this Instapot someday, I'll get back to scrapbooking someday. Usually someday means never, or perhaps a time so far in the future, it might as well be never. And that's not a bad thing. It's just that right now we have different priorities, and then being able to accept that and say, yeah, I'm saying someday, that's not happening anytime soon. And so perhaps somebody else could enjoy this item, and I can always come back to it in the future if my time and energy allows. Or perhaps you use the word should. I should cook with my Instapot because everyone says it's great. Well, I'll tell you, the Instapot may not make the move because in the years I've had it, I haven't used it, but yet I feel like I should because people say, oh, it's so easy. Oh, it makes life so much easier. Meanwhile, I love things that I can just make in the skillet really quick or even the slow cooker. It just doesn't necessarily fit my personality. And it's okay to say, yeah, who's saying should? Anytime you hear should, ask yourself, who says? And also, just in case. Well, I should keep this just in case I might need it someday, right? We kind of combine the just in case and someday. And this can be for like specialty things like, oh, just in case I go fishing, or just in case I do this, or just in case I lose the 20 pounds in the next couple months. And sometimes it's helpful, instead of a just in case, doing just for when. So that's a specific time in the future. For example, like my ski stuff, stuff I only use once a year, but I can say, oh, that's for when I go skiing in the winter, rather than, oh, it's just in case I decide I might want to do something. So that is aspiration, another biggie. And again, we are challenging those stories and assumptions. That brings us to number 3. The third roadblock that I notice a lot when it comes to decluttering is fear and guilt. Fear and guilt are pretty similar. And so this can look like asking yourself, what if I need it? What will my mom or mother-in-law think if I get rid of it? And so it could be the fear of regretting letting something go. It could be guilt because you have a memory attached to a sentimental item. Perhaps it was a gift given to you that you feel guilty about. We have lots of episodes about all of these topics. Or maybe you're feeling guilty because you feel wasteful about letting it go. You don't want it to go to the landfill. You're guilty because we paid so much for something and we never used it. And so it's sitting there with the tags. And honestly, the cognitive biases that go on in our minds doesn't help much. And I've done an episode about these cognitive biases before, but just a couple of them. There's something called the endowment effect, which is simply the more and longer that we own something, the more that we attach meaning to it and importance to it. Also, we have loss aversion. So that states something like, we would rather not lose $20 rather than find $20 because we want to avoid losing things at all costs. And so a lot of times when we have things that are aligned with our identity or they're kind of mixed up in these memories and so forth, it feels like a loss to us if we don't have it. Also, there is sunk cost fallacy. So that is like, okay, well, I've paid the money for it, and so I'm just going to keep it. Like, think of a pair of really uncomfortable shoes, and you're like, I'm going to wear these shoes because I paid so much money for them. Meanwhile, they're making your feet super uncomfortable. So then they just stay in the closet, and then again, they're mocking you. So the cost ends up being you feeling bad about yourself, having to maintain them, having to think about them. And so really that's remembering, hey, we already spent the money. And so maybe we made a mistake and that's okay. And finally, like nostalgia. So nostalgia is like, oh, I remember when I wore this t-shirt in high school. But meanwhile, maybe you think about high school and you're like, wait a minute. I went, out on a date with someone wearing this t-shirt and the guy was a jerk. And so we tend to have the rose-colored glasses when it comes to nostalgia, and we keep something just because it's old, but not necessarily that it has a positive sentiment attached. So what can we do in this case? Well, the mindset shift is knowing that two things can be true at the same time. Okay. So I paid a lot of money for this, and I can let it go because I made a mistake and it's okay. I could use this and I haven't used it for a while, so I'm going to release it so that somebody else can benefit from it. This was a gift, and I know the gift giver didn't want me to keep it forever, especially if I don't really like it, and a gift given out of love doesn't need to be kept out of guilt. On the one hand, I don't want to be wasteful, but then also I don't want to waste my space and time and energy holding on to something that I don't need. So again, those are some of the mindset shifts around the third roadblock, which is fear and guilt. So what do we do? Well, I've mentioned my transform method before. I'll make sure to link to that episode in the show notes. That is the best way I know to approach your space. And asking yourself some of these questions or kind of having some of these mindset shifts can really help you in releasing what you don't need. And I'm going to also link to a resource I have, which is my 5 mindset shifts to help you let go of clutter, where we go into some of these things and you can kind of journal and work through them a bit. And if you want to have more support when it comes to your decluttering journey, go ahead and join our free Facebook group at tinyurl.com/moms overcoming overwhelm. And if for some reason you are interested in maybe working with me virtually, as I'm going to be moving, so my in-home services are going to be put on hold for a bit, However, I do offer some monthly coaching options where really you're giving me a video tour of your space and I'm helping you figure out how to approach it, giving you that accountability and everything that you would need. So if you want to learn more about that, there is a webpage forthcoming, but you can always email me at info@simplebyemmy.com. I respond to the emails. I don't have an assistant, so it's always just me, and I would be happy to help you. So I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Bye for now. Hey Mama, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, could you please share this episode with another mom who is feeling overwhelmed? Also, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a 5-star written review wherever you listen to your podcast. Finally, if you would like more support, come on over to our free Facebook group, tinyurl.com/moms overcoming overwhelm. Can't wait to connect with you soon.